Um, I want to make some comments about a situation. They have the housing bond bill. They've created some of these projects. Was it 256 million to create for homeless? First of all, there are homeless like that, but that does not address the bottom of the barrel homeless. In Europe, they're called rough homeless, rough, sleeping in the rough, and meaning out in the streets and that kind of thing. And so I'm going to call rough homeless is not being addressed by affordable housing. Rough homeless is part where Salt Lake City, Helsinki, and some of these others know that you have to simply give this section of the population housing, food, clothing, housing, that's it. They cannot fend for themselves. They simply cannot. Whether it's mental illness, lack of maybe they're artistic and they simply, not autistic, but artistic, and they simply don't care. They'd rather pursue some interest like that. Perfectly understandable. And the benefit that's, if you give these people, like, look, Einstein is an example in a way. His theory of relativity, when he created that, you can imagine, he had to work at a patent office. Can you imagine rubber stamping patent applications while you're trying to work out the theory of relativity for mankind? I mean, it's just, society is so self-centered, they can't realize that ideas are so important, and providing some housing, clothing, and shelter for some of these people is so remunerative. Corporations know this, and they'll hire creative people, and they'll just say, "Go tinker, go experiment. We'll pay you, big bucks just because we know you're creative." And so, these segment of society should be identified and given housing. But again, rough housing. I had a friend who lived in a cardboard box, in a parking lot in the neighborhood, and he was a friend of mine, and we used to chat and all that stuff. And one night, I hired him to help me, do some construction, and that was the first time I ever heard "O Mamma Mia Bambino Caro." I mean, it's incredibly beautiful, listening to this alcoholic sitting in construction dust on a Friday night, and he was a trained opera singer. I mean, what an incredible, what do you call it, aria, whatever, that night I heard, and it's one of my most favorite songs, and that's how I learned, you see. And you see, these people are, they can't, mostly he couldn't handle society. And why let these people live in a cardboard box? You wouldn't do that to a stray dog. You wouldn't do that to a stray dog. Why are you doing it to somebody, anybody, any kind of human being? See what I mean? You're letting these people rot in the streets. Rot. I've seen a guy who visited in parking lot sleep a pool of urine. He was so drunk he just urinated on himself. He wasn't even conscious. See, why are we doing this? There's no need. People go and have these, veterans memorial parades and put the flags up and say, oh, blah, 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 and they fought for their country, and they come home and you let them rot in the streets. I mean, haven't you got a clue what you're doing? You say they fought for our country. Yeah, Memorial Day parades, and you pass some homeless guys and on the streets, men and women, vets, mental illness, yeah, maybe, PTSD, yeah, sure, maybe. So what? You wouldn't treat a stray dog that way. You wouldn't allow a stray dog to stay out in the frickin' streets. Why are you letting these people rot? You're letting the people frickin' rot. And then those that aren't vets, they're not vets, we're not going to give them any benefits. Well, those are the people the vets fought for. You're letting both of them rot. Is that any kind of respect? These guys give their lives for the country, and there you have a bunch of people, homeless, who weren't vets. Those vets gave their lives to preserve freedom and life for these homeless people. And the amount of disrespect you show the vets by letting them all rot, busing them into the countryside to get rid of them from the city. Good God, it's obscene. It's obscene what you're doing. Portland, build alleyways in new buildings so you can have more places for them to rot. That's it. Now, Salt Lake City, look, they give them food, clothing, shelter, and services. Just give it to them. They can't take care of themselves, Look at what Helsinki has done. Tens of thousands were on the streets. What was it, 2008 or I don't remember when. Huge problem. No problem today. One segment of it, they give them an ability to get housing, to do and reconstitute their lives. But they also have the option, these people, of permanently, taking, resident without doing that, because there is some segment that just cannot. That's all. They just can't. Don't know why. Maybe sometimes they'll be able to figure all that stuff out, but right now they're being treated worse than an animal, stray dog, stray cat. A feral cat, you wouldn't treat feral cat, feral dog that way, You wouldn't allow it, If you had animals on your property, you'd be charged with animal abuse. You'd be in frickin' prison if you treated animals the way you're treating your fellow human beings, your neighbor sleeping on the street there. Again, letting them rot, vets and the folks that they fought for, sacrificed their lives, the amount of disrespect, the amount of inhumanity, you can't, just letting them rot, that's all. Just that's what they're doing. Look at these homeless camps, The disease, the conditions, that's the only word for it. Just frickin' rot. And the only solution is to give them housing. Just provide for them. They can't provide. What would you want people to do for you? What would you want people to do for you if you were in some way incapacitated for whatever reason and you couldn't provide for yourself? And society would say, no problem, come over here. We got a place for you, you know. We have so much money in society, it's a trivial amount. Now, you take a look at this. Now, you take a look at this. Portland had to pass a measure for a measly 256 million. A measly 256 million. You still didn't address the rough homeless. You see, what's happened to those people? They're the most in need. They can't possibly go any a job to afford. Look, in the most need, again. Now let's take a look at this 256 million. Let's take a look at Lake Oswego. Okay? Take a look at Lake Oswego. Just in your mind, take a picture of what downtown Lake Oswego looks like. And then take a look at downtown Portland, metropolis. I'm back after 20 years. I come back and see the development, the Skywire, the cable car to the UO, and the huge buildings and the high rises, the Portland Fountain down there, and where they raised the really nice neighborhoods to make way for urban development. What a tragedy that was. And so comment back onto the housing bond. I saw the drawings of the projects and the photographs, and you got to realize that like 80% of that's crap. Why? B.B. King sang a song. We got a guy from the city came and said he's going to build some apartments for y'all. And you wonder why I sing the blues. The projects. The projects have been done before. They do not work. Look at some of those proposed and being built construction projects for the bond development. They're the projects all over again. Sure, people are going to be glad to move out of homelessness into a permanent structure, as they were with the projects. But projects are projects, and they've got that connotation because that's what they are. These projects, the housing bond, are going to fail just like the others. Good money after poor ideas. Poor ideas. You guys lack ideas. I'm an idea guy. That's what you're hearing. And you lack good idea people. I know you think you got them, but you don't got them. Takes one to know one, and you ain't got good idea people. You have good-hearted idea people, but you need better ideas. You've got the love, attention, and the money, but you don't really have the commensurate ideas. Take a look at this. Now, there's a project. You see it's red. It's kind of a strange-looking shaped building. There's some interest there. But you take some of these. They're basically a box, 4 stories high, 15 units per every 15 picture windows out onto the street, 10-foot glass storefronts underneath, and you think that's cool. It's a good idea, poor architecture. It doesn't do anything. If musically you translated this type of architecture, it would be terrible music. Boom, 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 boom. Number 1, boom, 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 boom. Number 2, boom, 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 boom. Unit 3, boom, 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 boom. See what I mean? But you get some architecture in there. I mean, that stainless steel box doesn't do anything emotionally for anybody. And any architecture student, receives the training. that architecture is supposed to speak, it's supposed to do something culturally, it's supposed to contribute something to people's daily lives, and a stainless steel box doesn't. And people are going to ignore it and get ticked off about it. You know, it just creates problems. You know, it's just like a heat drain on social society. And it's very well intentioned. I'm not saying you don't have good intentions. You know, I'm not saying it's a good thing to provide for this type of homeless individuals. But um, if you look at some of those projects for the housing, well, you see the rehabs have got some interest. It actually contributes something emotionally to your daily lives. That's necessary. That's not an elective. You know, it's a necessary thing for architecture to do. And one of those projects, one of those ideas there, uh, you know, if you compare it to the projects, the bombed out projects of San Francisco, or that's all it is. It's just a new project. That's all it is, folks. And it's going to deteriorate because it's not contributing anything, and it just demonstrates the society has not given enough. You know, you think it's going to be more expensive? Well, it is to create projects that contribute something, you know, and so people will respect when they come home. You know, if it's a refrigeratorized, you know, I don't know why an architect would do that kind of stuff, you know, honestly, but you know, he's supposed to have some artistic, you know, sensitivity. I hate to criticize this so much, but you've got to understand this is a long-term drain on society to have boxes like this and projects like this that are going to, you know, they're just going to be drug-ridden and they're going to contribute to the drug use, and it's just a terrible thing. You know, somebody's got to tell you the emperor's got no clothes here, you know. And in this case, the emperor's stealing clothes from from onlookers, you know. That's the type of thing that's happening. I hate to, but this is a fact. Somebody's got to tell you. But your rehab projects, you see, there's something there, you know. And you need to create something that really contributes something, that this is a worthwhile thing. And in Helsinki, you see and other places where they're doing this type of real innovative, providing for all the physiological and psychological and emotional needs. They're needs. You can't ignore them because the needs unfinished need, unfulfilled need is going to create long-term problems. That's all it is, you know. And you know, you're going to have to put out and pay the price, you know. This fast food kind of stuff, you know, that has virtually no architectural nutrients to it to contribute to society, you know. It's been done. It has been done, you know. And apparently you didn't think about it, you know. You thought you were doing good and you could put up any kind of claptrap, you know, sorry, but it's claptrap, or any kind of art, you could call it architecture. I don't know why you paid these guys when you don't need blueprints to do something like that. Any competent, contractor could have done that from a napkin. So anyway, sorry, but that's my aside to that area. So, but let's look at this. Going back to Lake Oswego, I'm going to take you back there. And, there was recently a Cattengale graduate, you know, he was given an award for having given $106 million over some period of time, you know, charity or to whatever he did, right? Oh, big deal, right? Hate to have harsh words, but why not give in a way that, say, you teach people? Everybody knows, teach people how to fish, you know, they say that, but do they do that? Why give $106 million? Why not give and instruct people how to provide for themselves? This guy was a businessman. Why not instruct? What you could have done with 106 million if you had instructed people how to provide for themselves, and they would have contributed so much more than 106 million, and instructed others how. You see how it would have compounded it. See, why am I mentioning this? Because here's an individual who gave out of Lake Oswego, Dunthorpe crowd. I'm not putting them down. I went to Cal and Gable. You know, I went to school with these people. They were my classmates, good buddies. I liked the heck out of them. Dated so many of their children. Loved the heck out of them. But I'm pointing out that here's an individual who personally could have given half of your housing bond budget, given it. You see what I'm saying? Why are you asking the people of Portland to raise money? Now, you know where I'm going yet with this. So now, Lake Oswego crowd, this is who's there. Well, why am I going there? Because take a look at Lake Oswego in your mind, and look at downtown Portland. Where would you want to live? Where would you want your family to live? Right? Well, that's why I'm saying your projects, that are going to fail because they've already failed, been well documented, established, building projects, they become projects, bombed out. They wouldn't allow this at Lake Oswego, would they? Why? Because they can say no to crap. The folks in Lake Oswego know what works. They know what livability is. You don't see a 5, 6, 7-story, much less a 20-story apartment building on the lake. You're not going to get it through. You're not going to get it past the building. Why? Because the residents there will fire the guy. They'll put some guy in office, because that's what they do, who won't allow that crap. Crap. No shade, big problem. You see, livability. You don't have to do a study. Just go look at what's happening in Lake Oswego. There it is. There is livability. There is no place nicer to live than Lake Oswego and Dunthorpe. That's what happens when people can do livability. Now, look what happened in Portland. That is not livable anymore. The social problems, the mental problems, the homelessness, do you see homelessness in Lake Oswego? No. Okay? You get the picture? Just compare the two areas, And the people that live in Lake Oswego are controlling what happens in downtown Portland because they own the fucking place. Excuse me. You know what I'm saying? And you guys are passing because you can't say no. And the Lake Oswego crowd, I was a businessman at one point, and if you ever seen Schedule C for a sole proprietor and compared it to Schedule 1040, the people who were working stiffs, they got no shelter, from taxes, no tax deductions, virtually. Schedule C, what do they got? 35, 40 lines, of these people, so sole proprietors. You buy something that goes on one of those lines and you don't pay taxes on that. So your tax liability at the end of the year for a Schedule C, is really minimal compared to the guy you would attend 40. And the Lake Oswego crowd had the legislature write Schedule C, whether it was Congress or the locals, uh, state and city, right? So the LO crowd just say, look, we're providing jobs and such, and we need these kind of, because they're business expenses and blah, blah, blah. As though the working stiff didn't have business expenses. It's just that he doesn't have the clout in legislature to pass the law for that, you know? And so the yellow crowd is so proud of themselves, they pay so little taxes, right? But why are they proud of themselves? They wrote the frickin' laws for themselves and then pat them on the back for writing the laws that they don't have to pay. I mean, are you kidding me? You know? I mean, if anybody they should have a sense of humor, really. I mean, honestly, when they go to the country club, they should have a little bit of sense of humor about the situation, about what they've done. And their corporations, the corporate tax is the same way, you know. They write it, and so their tax laws, you know, and they take their corporations offshore, and you know, they take money out of the states and take it into into the pockets of the owners of the yellow crowd. See, that's what's going on, you know. It's a big money drain, you know. You look at downtown Portland, and people go, "Oh, geez, we really got to go." Yeah, well, it's a huge money drain, and it's going to LO and those folks. See what I'm saying? That's the way it is. Now, why am I going there? You know, with this housing bond thing? Because now the LO crowd will tell you they are providing jobs. Well, yeah, they are. But the working stiffs they employ are paying taxes. And the working stiff is paying taxes that, you know, he utilizes state and federal and local public funded, you know, the roads, the social services, the libraries, I mean, all kinds of schools, all kinds of stuff. So the working stiff is paying, you know, for all these. But the local Oswego crowd is not. The fact that they're providing the jobs does not pay for the LO crowd's use of services. The working stiff is paying for his use, his personal use of these public services. The LO crowd is not. Their corporations are not. And when you see the downtown Portland, the amount of money that's been taken out of the system and the tax breaks and all these things and you're creating jobs, it's a bunch of baloney, you know. Look, if you look at, take lobbying, you know, your PAC or whatever you've got going, lobbying, and you look at the corporate contributions to lobbying, the return is like, I don't know, they put in how many trillion, they get back like, what is it, 5 to 10 times the amount of money that they lobby in benefits. Those benefits come out of the public's pocketbook. They have to come from somewhere. Incentives, tax breaks, loopholes, you know. They have to come with somewhere. And why does Congress and the legislature do this? Because Congress and legislature, they're elected officials. And so the majority of Americans don't have that kind of money. And if you look at the percentage wealth percentile, you'll see that it's so heavily weighted. It's got like a thin thread, the lower 80% of the population. At the top, it spreads out. like a stratified forest fire smoke, the top 2% of the elevation is where the wealth is. And those people who have wealth are lobbying, getting more and more rules for their corporations and their personal tax exemptions, etc., to line their pockets. And they're not paying for the social services and other services, infrastructure and everything that society has to pay for. They're not paying for what they're taking. Their corporations are the same. And if you look at the implications of Trump's tax package, that's exactly what happens. The top super rich, 1%, are receiving the tax. Why? What's wrong with the super rich? They frickin' are so crazy, undeveloped. We covered this in another video. They're undeveloped individuals. They don't understand that for society, we need mature individuals. Mature individuals know the value of giving, as I have described, not as a lot of people say, just go out and give $100 million here and there. No, a specific type of giving under specific conditions for specific individuals. That's the only way to have mature adults in society. And giving is the mortar of society. And the Lake Oswego crowd, they're taking without limits, It's a psychiatric malfunctioning. It's a psychiatric malfunctioning the Lake Oswego crowd has. Yeah, they were my buddies. But they've got a problem. And the problem is, take a look at their livability of their city. That's great. It follows all the guidelines you'd want for mental, emotional, social health, except for the fact that the suburb of Lake Oswego is downtown Portland. And you see where they go for the daytime? Downtown Portland represents a psychiatric malfunction of society. I know every frickin' city in the world, modern city, high rises, is it livability? Are the condominiums that they put up stacked? They used to say, houses made of ticky-tacky all in a row. Remember when in the late 60s when the housing development was laid out in tens of hundreds of acres of identical houses. Well, look at the Portland Fountain, that replaced the really nice houses that used to be there, I remember. And it stopped at, the Corbett area, fortunately. You could have put that Portland Fountain in Lair Hill or, any place or several places around the city. I mean, it's just a concrete bunch of, you could have put some nice fountain in, like with some, we've got the Columbia Gorge waterfall for examples for some nice fountains, I think the architect probably got, awards for that. Well, I don't know why. I would have said not a commendation, but a condemnation. Just go take a walk, at Wacala Falls or, any of the nice little waterfalls. You could have created you could have had a moss-colored, beautiful, waterfall there, to show what the Pacific Northwest is all about instead of a bunch of concrete blocks. That's all it is. And take the high-rises that replace. Does anybody know their neighbor there? That's what I'm talking about. You talk about livability of Lake Oswego, now look at the livability there. What have you got? What is that, a 30, 40 high-rise there with a Just a bunch. They're all identical. No, I lived in Corbett, and I would get up. I never told anybody this, but you know, there's so many times I was a light sleeper, and I used to get up in the middle of the night because I'd hear a sound. Yeah, somebody stealing hubcaps, right? Somebody stealing somebody's car stereo, a woman screaming, glass breaking. You know, uh, you don't call the police. You haven't got time, right? So I'd go out middle of the night. You know, no backup, no gun, no microphone. Go out, confront the guy. It's always a guy. It's always a guy doing some crap in the neighborhood. You know, sometimes have to call the police, 911, but you don't have that much time. But and so of course, Corbett. If you look at the, this was like a while ago. The crime was down. Well, see, yeah. Well, I was out there. Happened in another neighborhood, but who was doing that? You know. No, I didn't want to be a member of the police force. I was just out there, just taking care of a little business. That's all. And and we had a basketball goal, right there, Whitaker and whatever it was. And pickup games. There was a woman who played for the WBA in Chicago, and she'd come back in the neighborhood, and we'd play ball, right? All the time, pickup games. Basketball game now, and that goal's gone now, been gentrified. I don't know if everybody knows their neighbor there anymore. I've been gone for a couple decades. But you lose the neighborhood, see? Who's doing that in the high rises? Who's getting up in the middle of the night, when they hear a sound, Who's doing that? What happened to the fabric of society? What happened to livability? What happened to neighbors taking care of neighbors? Are they doing that now? Now it's every person for themselves. I got my little cube. I got my little house in Lake Oswego. I got mine. I got mine. I got mine. I got mine. That's what I'm talking about. See, when I talk about downtown city not being livable, you kind of thought, well, you didn't know what I was talking about. Now you do, but do you? You ever live in a neighborhood like that where people are really taking care of the neighborhood, taking care of business, out in the street doing their thing? You might say, oh, they're out on the street and they're not very productive. Well, guess what? I lived there. Eric Edwards was there, the video, the film guy. Garth Edwards, stained glass artist. Richard Meeker, Willamette Week. We're talking very productive members of society. And that neighborhood, if you look at what it used to be, friends of mine when I lived there, they were afraid to come there. The buildings were so run down, Slum landlords waiting to make money off urban renewal, let the properties go. But you see the type of individuals that came out of that area, you see. Appearances are so misleading if you don't look into what's actually happening there. And that was lost. The Richard Meekers, the Sean Higgins, Eric Edwards, Garth Edwards, Michael Loving, the NBA star, WBA star. Jazz artist Bob in Maryland, moved to New York. Bob Hutchins. Bob Hutchins had a jazz quartet. Portland Art Museum. He gave a concert one time. It was a neighborhood. See, that's what happens when you have a real neighborhood. See, you get a 30, 40, unit high-rise, bunch of tiki-takis put up by the Lake Oswego crowd. They razzed that neighborhood. That's what you lost. See, the Lake Oswego crowd came to the Portland Building Bureau and said, "Look, we would like to do it. Look at what it will do, and the jobs, and it's so modern." And modern crap, modern crap. That's the Lake Oswego crowd. No, that's it. That is the Lake Oswego crowd. Now, the Corbett crowd, they're the ones that are producing creativity. The Bob Hutchins jazz, Eric Edwards, his award-winning movie. Eric Edwards, Richard Meeker, Sean Higgins. Oh, I have some developments yet to come. You're just beginning to hear what I've got coming. Soccer, very exciting. You're not going to get that out of Lake Oswego crowd. They're into money. See, that's when money is taken too far. Taken too far. They do not understand the warmth of the neighborhood that I lived in, when I could go out anytime with a basketball and shoot hoops, with somebody. Saturdays, big time. Remember buying a basketball. We needed a basketball one Saturday morning, so I went to Freddy's and got one, came back, and you know what? 5 p.m., we had to throw the basketball away because all the bumps on it were completely gone. I mean, it was smooth as a baby's head. Do you see that at the Portland Fountain down? Did you see that, those high rises down there? Lake Oswego crowd, do you? You don't know what it's like. Because you go to Lake Oswego, you live in your little house, you have to go work out somewhere. We had a gym. There it was on the corner. Out down the corner, down in the street. Well, that song was a reality. And you have lost that in downtown Portland. And that's what I mean. I look at what's there now, I say, it's too bad. It's too bad. There are places that have very high, they know how to do this, They know how to have areas of high per square foot costs, where you don't deplete the Portland of all these things. Get mental illness, social dysfunction. You look at that. You've got your downtown symphony now. It doesn't mean you had to get rid of the neighborhood. So you like to dude up and stuff like that. Well, so did I. Look, I told you I went to Catlin with these folks. My father was a surgeon. Look, he was a big-time surgeon. I mean, a big-time, great surgeon. Dr. Robert Burke Higgins, Portland, VA. Led the kidney transplant for the entire frickin' human race. Literally. A doctor who knew him told me, I didn't know this, because he was just dad to us, right? Just dad. He didn't talk about his work that much, And said he was the first to do the kidney transplant. I know Dad talked about it, at one point a few years ago. But in the 60s when I went to Catlin, I didn't know he was doing the first kidney transplants, And yeah, Apparently, this doctor said when I was in Boston years ago, he said that, yeah, my father had a picture on the hall and was a jewel in the crown of Deacon Beth Israel, because of who he was. I didn't know this. So you people think that the Lake Oswego crowd is so great. I don't know one fucking one of you who's done what my father did for the human race. So go shove it. You want to see something, you want to put the bar, there's the bar. Go ahead and try and take all your millions and try and get over the bar. Try and do something with any kind of wealth of that scale for the human race. You talk about great surgeons and doctors in history for the human race, and my father never even talked about himself. Further, just to show you the height of this bar, of this guy, you can imagine how wealthy that doctor, we talk about doctors, he could have been. He was making $20,000 a year. $20,000 a year. Sure, it was in the 60s, but still $20,000 a year. When the Lagos crowd was, their incomes were the tens of millions. Corporations more. $20,000 a year. Look what he did for the human race. Did you do anything significant? And you know what? I went to live with him later in life. We had a great rapprochement. And I knew he died with $5,000 to his name. That's all he had. He rented a house, his wife talked him into buying a house. That's the only reason he was living in a house later on. $5,000. And he gave me $1,200 just before he died. He didn't, know exactly, of course, when he was going to die, but, and what I did with the $1,200 is I bought a Macintosh desktop, And so all the stuff that I'm doing today, it funded all those things. $1,200. And Lake Oswego crowd with 12 million, what did you do? Make more money? Suck more money out of the economy? Create more homeless? Create more unlivable environment? Put up another high-rise and think it's great? Destroy another neighborhood that carried the Bob Hutchins, the Richard Meekers, the Eric Gedwards, etc. See what I mean? You don't know what a good neighborhood is. You think you have livability. That's your type of externally visible livability. But internally, you got a country club. You don't got what we had in the neighborhood. You see, when society has the right elements in a neighborhood, that's when you have a productive uprising, upwelling of constructive and productive and creative aspects that society feeds on. Not as fed on, but feeds on. It gives the Richard Meekers, the artist, the studio, the Ross Island grocery store. So, yeah, I've forgotten the name of the artist studio there. The jazz quartet, the video, the basketball players. They don't come out of Lake Oswego, folks. Now, money is important, and the Lake Oswego crowd could promote the type of neighborhood that really creates and has these elements in it if they tried. But they're not trying. Maybe because nobody's telling them. Maybe they'll listen to this. Maybe they can use their money in a way that would create this kind of thing. See? They have so many millions, tens of millions, in some cases hundreds of millions, you know, creating an environment like this neighborhood would be so simple for them. If they just thought, if they just had it in their hearts that they would actually give to society in such a way that would be productive long term. So the housing bond, see, you're raising. I don't think you should be raising money like this. I think you should be going to the Lake Oswego crowd and saying, look, here's what we need, fund it. You know, out of your personal account, not your, no, out of your personal account. Look, you have hidden so many tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars and put it into your personal pockets, you know, and you're not giving enough. You know, the type of charity that the Lake Oswego crowd gives to, by and large, their corporate charity and stuff that they feel so good about, no, actually enables them to pay less taxes. That's the way they wrote the law. They write those laws. Congress didn't think, oh, let's write these laws. Like, no. The yellow crowd, doesn't matter what state they're in, they go and they do this. You think it's off base? Well, nobody else is going to do it for them, are they? If there's a tax break written for the yellow crowd, you know, it didn't come from the middle class, did it? Didn't come from the lower class, did it? It didn't come from the homeless, did it? Well, where did it come from? Well, it came from the yellow crowd. And that's not the LOL crowd, that's the LO crowd. And somebody's got to say, look, you guys, nothing wrong with accumulating massive wealth. But we've got some needs here that you have, by and large, created. You know, Jesus said, we'll always have the poor. Yes, we will, under some conditions. And some of those conditions are when the rich don't pony up for things that they've created. But there's some segment of society that's not appropriate to say that about them, because they just can't hold a job for one reason or another. And we have to simply give these people money, food, clothing, and sheltering services. We simply have to give it to them, just like you would a stray dog. You know, you would not, I'm not comparing a stray dog, but I'm saying you would not treat a stray dog this way. You wouldn't treat dog. Here, these LO crowd, the country was protected by the vets, and they let the vets rot in the streets. See what I mean? This is the LO crowd. See, you know, they may be able to make money, but they cannot make a mirror for themselves. You know, that they can see. Look, guys, this is what you're doing. This is what you actually are. You don't want to think this is what you are. This is your behavior. Excuse me, what you are. Okay? Any one of you could single-handedly solve this rough homeless problem. You know? I want you, when you drive by a homeless person on the street, all you yellow crowd, when you drive, this is your responsibility. Now, let me tell you something about what is your responsibility. This is not something that's legislated. This is something that's as is where is. When you are there and you see a need, it is your responsibility to take care of that, one way or another. Get help for that person or do something about it. Doesn't matter what the need is. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're the LO crowd. When you see a need, it's your responsibility. Somehow the universe has created the two of you to be together, and it's your responsibility. Now, let me tell you what this means in reality. When I'm home alone, middle of the night, I hear a sound that obviously needs attention. That's my responsibility, pure and simple. That's my responsibility. It is dictated by the fundamental laws of the universe. That's what I'm talking about. This isn't legislated by the legislator. In society as well. I remember one day, afternoon, in a concert on some hill in Portland area. People are out sitting around, enjoying the music, picnicking, and I was there. And there was a woman with a Malamute, one of those big aggressive dogs. I mean, I don't know why people get these dogs, but they like them. They're furry and they're white and they look like they're nice if they're your dog. And at one point, I guess she had to go to the bathroom. And she tied her dog to a tree. There was like one little tree there, a little sapling, and she went off. And a couple of guys, right, in their 30s, 200 pounds, obviously worked out, strolling along, just strolling along. And each of them has a Rottweiler, the biggest frickin' Rottweiler I've ever seen, I think, big as a frickin' lion. And around the collar, they had the collar was a steel collar with spikes on it, frickin' spikes. And then a chain was their leash, chain, like a 6-foot chain around to their wrist. They were like chariots, their horses, cruising in their chariots pulled by their war horses, I don't know what these guys thought, but right. So you can see it coming, can't you? The four of them saw this, what, a Malamute husky or something. It was a pretty big, tied to a tree. Oh boy, trouble, trouble, trouble. This foursome started baiting this one lone dog. And I mean, fortunately, they were all on leashes because they were barking like, they were going to kill each other if they could just get loose. I mean, if they got loose, there would have been a dog fight, they would have so ruined that concert. And I mean, it was amazing. These guys were just, the chain just ringing their dogs, at that guy, at that lone dog, And this woman shows up, right? Oh my God, you thought there was trouble before this. Now, talk about an irate dog owner. God, she lays into these guys, Wait to see how I'm going with this. And these guys, you can see on their attitude, we're bigger than you, lady, and our dog, like, what the heck do you think you're going to do, It was obscene. Well, at this point, I'd had enough. I got up and I walked over and I stood just behind the shoulder of that woman and off to the side so I didn't interfere with her. She took one look at me, looked back at them, and they took a look at me. I was just standing there, solid as a frickin' rock. This is what I'm talking about. My responsibility to do something. I just stared him dead in the eye. dead in the eye. That's all it took. They took one look at me, put their heads down, took their chariots, went right off into the crowd. And that was that. That's what I'm talking about, LO crowd. That's what I'm talking about. That's the responsibility. That's it. The need is there. Need is there. It's very clear. Get up, do something about it. Is that a one-off thing for me? No. Another time, remember the PG&E hearings? I want you to get a good idea what responsibility is. Remember that, the governor's hearings, the PG&E hearings, government call, citizens hearings going around the state, citizen input, right? Well, I was teaching physics and math at Clackamas Community College at the time, and I saw this, and I had some opinions about nuclear power. And there was a meeting downtown Portland coming up. I thought I'd go. Well, I want you to understand that I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee at the time, and my mother used to take, and father, my mother, she wanted me to go into physics, right? So she took me to Oak Ridge, and I knew how to build and operate a nuclear power plant at the age of 7. So I had a different perspective than a lot of people at the hearing. I was teaching physics, so you don't know where I'm going with this yet. But I also knew I liked nuclear power, see, but I did not like the problem with nuclear waste. Now that still is a nuclear problem that is insurmountable at this point. Insurmountable. The whoops plants, as you know, the tanks that they put in the ground, 75, the estuary study, Columbia River estuary, says they found, radioactivity downstream, 100 miles downstream, See, we're not ready for nuclear power, folks, I have no idea what the radioactivity levels are in the Columbia River now, but, the chances of cleaning up the whoops tanks, and they say, oh, we got solvent. We don't have, the half-life, so that's 50,000 years, some of it. What kind of stability have we got socially, tectonically? That's just the first half-life for one of the radioisotopes, and of course, General Electric and some of these people are producing these plants, they don't care. It's like the tobacco industry. It won't cause cancer. Oh, it won't leak. They put it in the salt mines and now they can't find it because the heat migrated, sorry, but we don't have a solution yet, They talk about putting it in dinner plates. Yeah. Let's put the radioactive waste in dinner plates, belt buckles, I mean, some of you business people just, you just clearly got, you're nuts. That's all. You're just nuts. The yellow crowd, that's the yellow crowd for you. Business people looking for a way to make a buck. Oh, Jesus. Anyway, so I show up to the hearing, right? PG&E has their attorney, got the hearings officer. Room, I don't know how many citizens showed up, 60, 100, I don't know, can't remember. But it was pretty packed, People know about nuclear power. They got it right. We're not ready for nuclear power. Most of them don't know why. But anyway, so I was listening. We had our name in. I was listening, and that PG&E attorney, okay, What he did to the witnesses, okay, it was obscene. He would berate. What do he say? A woman, he said, "Are you living with somebody?" He said, "Yes." Well, are you married? You know. Well, do you have a job? Do you have a kid? Well, does the kid is his father? Are you married? This is what they do. This was a PG&E attorney. You look up his freaking name. You can find out what it is. Um, I don't care actually at this point, but um, and so I mean, witness after witness after citizen after citizen get up, and he would just berate the heck out of them, trying to discredit their testimony, and he was doing a real good job of putting these folks down, and they were feeling bad. They couldn't protect themselves, and this onslaught of crap that he was shoveling on them, and he, he was just inundated. It was just terrible, you know. It was like watching a man abuse a woman in front of you, you know, and the woman couldn't protect herself, and you was just sitting there watching this obscene social, moral, despicable spectacle of this PG&E attorney. So, my name got called. I got up. They introduced me. If I said teaching physics or what, Clackamas Community College. So, the first question, I figured, I'll give this guy some latitude. Maybe I have this background. Maybe we'll have a reasonable discourse here, right? Reasonable testimony. Maybe some scientific facts for change. Well, I gave him his chance. He comes off with this question. He says, "Can you explain, or did you know that one pound of coal gives off more radioactivity than a pound of radioactive fuel?" Something like that. Trying to equate, showing that clearly coal was more radioactive and coal was acceptable, so there's no reason, a nuclear power plant, Pebble Springs at this point, I think it was, or maybe that was Lloyd Marbett in Pebble Springs. I can't remember the name of this, I guess, this initiative of these hearings, but, of course, I hadn't heard this comparison, you see. I hadn't heard this comparison, so I didn't know the answer. Of course, everybody's listening, But, I mean, immediately, I heard this, I said, he's trying to do this again to me. Okay, this is crap. This question does not need to be answered in this manner. It hit like a chicken bone in my throat. And I didn't hesitate. I said, and I just basically called him pleasantly a son of a bitch. I said, "You've been discrediting this, and you've been doing this," and I just told the audience and him outright, I just said, "Look, this is what you've been doing, you unconscionable asshole." No, I'm sorry, I did not use that language, but I cut him. Listen, you listen to me now. When I got going, I got a two-edged sword, and I can cut you down psychologically until you ain't nothing but a piece of crap on the ground. I'm telling you, there's probably nobody who can cut better than I can with a frickin' two-edged sword. And I cut him left and right until I shredded his frickin' ass. I mean, I shredded it. I shredded until I was frickin' well done with him. I mean, I literally did, God, I just got done. There was silence, complete silence. And you can hear the audience just applauding, just saying, "Yeah, that guy deserves that," And so the hearings officer, gavel came down, "Let's take a break." Yep, that's what happened. Let's take a break. You know, you know, let this guy put his head back on, right? So we took a break. Now, that's what I'm talking about, responsibility, see? It didn't matter whether you were for or against nuclear power. It did not matter. The responsibility was these people. These people were taking it, you know, and they shouldn't be. This was a public hearing. These were citizens. They should not be getting this. Yeah, the responsibility. Take the responsibility as is where is. It was necessary for me to stand up, somebody to, so that's what I'm talking about, LO crowd. It doesn't matter whether you're for or against something happening. If there's an injustice, stand up and do something about it. If you can't stand things being just, you got a problem, right? Now, what happened with that guy? We went out and we took a break. And I was coming back in, and he was going out, and he couldn't even look up. He saw me coming. He just couldn't. He just looked at the floor and walked by. You see, that's what happens. These people know they're doing wrong, you see. And the yellow crowd, you know you're not doing the right thing. You know you're not stepping up to the responsibility. Right now, it's there. I studied poverty in America under Dr. McCall at Catlin Gable in 60, 62, something, you know, and it's worse now than it was. And you know who could do something about it? The yellow crowd. Have you? No. Can you? Yes or no. You don't have the psychiatric, psychodynamic, social responsibility necessary to do that. And I know you go to your Episcopal church there, and in Lake Oswego, big frickin' deal. I went there a little bit, and I walked out finally. Just frickin' walked out of your church. Yeah, right. I ain't going to that kind of crap. That need is there. Who can take care of it? Take a look at the percent wealth and the demographics. That's who's. Look, you're very good at making money. That's right. But you're also very good at being so totally selfish that you're letting abject poverty rot in the streets, and you're going to Memorial Day parades memorializing these people who sacrificed their lives, and you're driving home while they rot in the streets. I mean, can you see the image of yourselves? This is your country. You virtually own it. You write the laws for it, virtually. All the financial law, you write them. And then you ask, oh, geez, isn't it great that our youth dedicate their lives to fight for freedom against communism, against this, against that? And you eulogize them. And they come home and rot in the streets from diseases and things and situations they got fighting for your frickin' ass. And you are letting them rot in the streets. You are immoral, LO crowd. You are immoral. Any one of you comfortably within your yearly wage or your corporation could take care of, there's, what is there, 6,000 people here who need assistance. I mean, look at downtown Portland. Look at the skyline. The amount of money that's there, okay? And you've got a few thousand people. Look at what Helsinki did. Look what Salt Lake City did, you know? You don't have to give to just the rough crowd. You just provide permanent housing for these people. But you've got another crowd that, you know, with a housing bond, I don't know why you're asking the Portland citizens to do your job. They create, you know, transitional situations for people with affordable housing that, you know, lower interest. This is another segment that can afford housing, but not as much as the high end or the 100% retail market. You know, there are segments, but you know, but for the yellow crowd to say you guys, you are taking so much money out of the social system, where do you think the money came from? You know, where do you think your money came from? It came from the rest of Portland. You didn't print it, did you? You sold goods and services. Where did you sell it? No, not to the people in LO. You sold it to the people in Portland. You know, give me a frickin' break. Now, you took the money. A lot of them are impoverished as a result, one way or another. If not directly, then indirectly. So give it back. You give part of it back, create good neighborhoods. I illustrated the type of neighborhood that I lived in that was good, that was created by a slum landlord, you know. He created that neighborhood because he bought a few houses in Pittance. When I bought my house there, it was $20,000, and, right? 1977. So it wouldn't take a whole lot of money to create a few block areas where you could have, you know, dedicated to artists, to creative writers, to creative entrepreneurs. You know, imagine that. Hello, come on. You know, are you intimidated by competition? Are you jealous because people might be more creative than you? I mean, look. Take, you know, an area, buy up the houses, and put some people in there, you know, look through society, the young people, the creative people who are on the edge struggling to make a living, put them free rent in there, free rent, utilities and services, you know, so they can create, you know. Look, you want to say there might be a Dr. Salt, there might be a Dr. Einstein. There might be another Eric Edwards, another Richard Meeker, another Sean Higgins. Of course, you won't want another one of me around, would you? But anyway, you know, another Bob Hutchins. You know, you like jazz? You know, see all the types of individuals you can create, you know. You can create, who can create, you know, and who otherwise wouldn't have that possibility, you see. And this could be a prototype for other communities. See, I have a lot of stuff, great projects that need attention. Ocean farming is one. Soccer is another. Gosh, what are some of the other projects? Would be major contributions to Portland and to society, and also to the world at large. See, you're probably not thinking about contributions to the world at large, are you? See, but I am. See, I am. Why? Because I can. Because I thought. You know why? Because I thought. I thought a while ago, I thought, well, what? I've taken care of my own needs. Now, going forward, what's the best thing I could do, the most valuable? What's the most valuable thing I could do within my capabilities for mankind, right? For the human race, right? I mean, a couple of people thought, well, that's kind of interesting. Why would you think something like that? Well, why not? Why wouldn't you? Hello, crowd. What are you thinking about? Yourselves, right? Yourselves. Writing another law, making a few more bucks. Why not get a little more perspicacious and a little more depth to your life, a little more depth in your heart, a little more depth in the type of giving you can give, a little more depth of interest to other people, you know, like me. Right now, you don't really have a lot of interest to me, you see. Richard Meeker, far more interesting. Bob Hutchins, far more interesting. Eric Edwards, far more interesting. The art studio, far more interesting. See what I mean? So that's the deal. I don't think I know you people doing the housing bond project, you're real excited about it. I'm not. For the reasons I've said, I think it's a good idea to help that segment of the homeless population, but, you know, you got to remember the people who are rotting. Sorry, but they are literally rotting on a daily basis downhill, okay? The rough homeless, you know. And the yellow people, you are directly responsible for neglect here, okay? Neglect. This is a responsibility. So I've illustrated what responsibility is, okay? Now I'm going to give you one more just to kick you in the frickin' teeth. Not only what I can think of in terms of the depth of mankind, but on a personal basis. I was living in Massachusetts, rent-free in this area, the project was set up. And I was driving with a friend, Richard, and we went by. Here was a guy standing, a homeless guy, and now this is winter in Massachusetts. This is late November, right? He's got a sweatshirt on. He's on the corner. So there's a light. So we pull over. We both gave him some money, right? And left. And it just said, it was, when it gets cold in Oregon, the raindrops get a little cold. You might get a silver thaw, but in Massachusetts, when it gets cold, the water gets rock hard. I mean, rock hard. We're talking a hard freeze. And so this guy says, so I said, I had a nice down coat, really nice down coat, perfect for Massachusetts. Too hot for Oregon, but I mean that's how it was. And I said, Richard, I said, if I'd had my coat, I could have given it to him. I mean that's the deal. That's how cold he needs it. I lived in an apartment and I didn't go out that much, and so I figured, well, anyway, I got home that night, and I opened the door for some reason, and I said, nope. Can't give my coat away, too freaking cold, Okay, so I said, well, I don't know, I'm not going to help the guy. So I got up the next morning. I said, Richard, hey, I got a little money. Let's go back, see if that guy's there, and I'll go buy Walmart and buy him a winter coat. That's where I got my winter coat, right? So I got to stop by, this is quite ironic, I stopped by the post office because I got to send my bankruptcy papers in. yeah, I'm going bankrupt. So I got to get them in the next day. So I got to pay priority. So I have $70 in my account, and it cost me like $35. For the mailing the package in and everything, right? Signatures and everything required. And so I go, well, Richard, not getting able to do this for the guy. I've got, what have we got? I had like 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks left till I get my Social Security check, right? That's gonna be it. So I go, well, I'm not being able to help the guy. So the next morning, not to be deterred, I go back to Richard and I say, Richard, listen, do you have a credit card? He says, yeah. And I said, well, can I borrow? Can we use it? I'll go buy that coat, and I'll pay you back, when I get my check. He says, okay. So we drive, and there is the guy. And we tell him, look, you want a coat, and so yeah. And so we go off to Walmart. And so Richard says, You're paying for this. I said, I know. So I said, I'm spending money already I haven't got next month coming, right? And I got like $35 this week for food for the rest of the frickin' month, okay? All right. So I go in and I gotta find a good way. So I find one, and it's a little waterproof on the outside, and it's a good heavy winter jacket. So I'm going, well, no, he's gonna need a heavy long sleeve shirt to go under it, right? Because he didn't have that, so he's gonna need that. So he's got that. I'm gonna put that in the cart, and then he didn't really have. He had a hoodie on, so he's gonna need a nice pullover cap. He's gonna stand out there for money. And well, he didn't have gloves either, did he? So, all right, so gonna get him some lined gloves out there because people don't stop by and give money that often. All right, so all right then. Oh my God, I'm going. You know what? He's gonna have to have a little food, doesn't he? So, you go to what kind of food? Okay, get him a decent bread and I said, some to drink and some reasonable food that's nutritious, right? And then I'm going, well, I saw a woman there, probably his girlfriend, I think, coming and going once in a while. So I better buy enough for two. Okay, look, when this is called responsibility. Okay, if it falls on you, it's your job to do something about it. Hello, crowd. I don't care if you don't. And I didn't have the money. I did have the money. I had the ability to work it out. So stand up and do your responsibility. Take care of the need at this point. Okay. The checkout bill was like $130. Oh my God. You know, but really, I mean, there's a need there. It wasn't the first time, obviously, I've had to go there was another time, don't get me started. I moved to Portland, right? Isn't that, you don't leave need because you move from one geographical location to another, What was there? There was a guy who went, anyway, no, we'll leave that story aside. It was just a story. It was an interesting story. But so I come to Portland. I thought I'd go back to the old neighborhood, right? Got a rental car. And I see a little, right, at the core, there was I still helped this guy, this woman, and she needed some groceries, so I went and bought her, and it was $130, right? Brought her groceries back, living in a tent there. And so on and so forth, it never ends. It never ends, You can't save the world, but you at least do something, when somebody's like that. And so, as a month, I totaled up. I said, where's the money going? I totaled it up. I'd spent like $260 on myself for food and for these other folks that I run into in situations in Oregon, in Portland, right, just alone, was like $330 or $350 compared to my $260. I said, oh, crap. I've obviously got to keep better track of my expenses here. But I'm talking about is that I don't expect you to do all this much, okay? In spite of the fact that you have 100 million times more money than I do. Literally, some of you got 100 million times more money than I do. But I'm just telling you, look at who I am. See, I'm not a bum. Look who my father was. Look at the types of things that I do. I'm an idea man. I'm a very valuable, monetarily wise, idea man. I can't monetize things personally. My family never inherited that trait. My father, my mother, me, another ancestor of mine, lineages, Alexander Graham Bell. My mother was a belle. You know, our family, your family may be one of wealth monetarily. My family is one of wealth idea-wise. We are extremely valuable to the human race. Extremely valuable. Look at what Mr. Bell did. Look at what my father did. You know, look at what I am doing. See, you're just beginning to see what I'm doing for the human race. You don't know about it. My father never talked about it. If you met him, you would never know. I'm talking about what I'm doing because you need to know that this is possible. You need to know that somebody with no money, or very little, can do the kinds of things that my family can do. Imagine the amount of money amount of what they could, imagine what you can do with the amount of money that you had if you had a good idea for the human race. You have good ideas for business-wise, but for the human race, not so much yet. See? So what I'm doing right now for the LO crowd is kind of waking you up to a new dimension to you can add more personal value and enjoyment to your life if you began to look at what constructive things you can actually do for people in need for the human race. You see what I mean? And what you can do in terms of the homeless, what you can do in so many other areas. In terms of something extremely valuable is creating a neighborhood, a project, where people of creativity can come and live and allowed and given support for their ideas. Artists of all kinds, inventors, creators, writers, journalists, see? Again, people like me, who you wouldn't want to hear from, see? But really, very valuable. And as I said in another video on giving, the only way to mature to the height of maturity for the human being, according to your DNA, and the DNA is what set this out. It's not a matter of legislated and deliberated morality. The DNA is what tells you what to eat. Your DNA tells you who you're going to love. Your DNA tells you what type of body type you are, what type of brain you've got. Your DNA also lays it down. When you're a child, you take in order to mature. When you're an adult, you have to give in order to mature. In order to achieve the height of maturation that an adult human being can do is to give. That's the bottom line. If you want to mature as an adult and achieve the reward, internal reward that one gets in happiness and satisfaction and fulfillment that a human being can have, it's in service of humanity. It's giving. As a child, you mature by taking. As an adult, you mature by giving. There is no other way. I mean, it's set out by your DNA. If you have to eat hamburgers, if your DNA, that's what you have to eat. If you have to eat jalapeno peppers, that's what you have to eat. And you want to mature to complete fulfillment as an adult human being, you have to give in service of humanity. Bottom line. I don't know how to put it more straight to you.
Hello.